today's video, we are going to be doing an SEO tutorial, and I'm going to be showing you how you can use structured data in Webflow to create featured snippets on Google. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey friends, welcome back. So in today's video, I am going to be doing a tutorial where I'm going to show you how you can implement structured data inside of Webflow to hopefully create featured snippets on Google. Featured snippet is a special way how Google displays information about a certain search query on the Google search engine results page. Oftentimes you find them in the forms of Q&A sections, but you have probably also come across featured snippets with job postings or restaurants. Having a featured snippet linked back to your website or a specific page on your website is obviously really good because it takes up a lot more space on the search engine result page, leading to significantly more clicks that then hopefully you can convert into customers. So I've managed to generate some featured snippets of my own for skills pages on the Unicorn Factory, as you can see right here, and this has been really helpful when it's come to driving more traffic to this specific landing page. Now, one of the greatest things about working with featured snippets is that even though it is an advanced SEO strategy, you really don't need to know anything about SEO in order to implement this onto your own Webflow sites. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through the process of setting up structured data for both static pages and dynamic template pages. Now, an important thing to know about using structured data is that Google doesn't guarantee that you will get a featured snippet if you use structured data on your website. In fact, in some cases, they might actually just create a featured snippet for you without you using structured data, but it definitely helps adding structured data to your site as it makes it easier for the search bots to read what your website is about. Now, if you're new to this channel and you want to learn more about how you can do cool things with no-code tools, then subscribe to the channel. Also, I'd very much appreciate if you could leave a quick like on this video. It helps the channel out a lot. But with all of that out of the way, let's dive into the tutorial. Okay, so I am going to go over a very simple example today because once you've figured out how it works, once it's quite easy to expand on it. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start off by showing you how you can implement structured data on a static page, and then I'm going to take you over to the blog post template page and show you how you can implement structured data using dynamic values that sit inside of the Webflow CMS. So the first place to get started, if you just want to learn a little bit more about this, is the Google search engine central page, where they have an overview of all of the different featured snippets that are available. And so you can see here you have a featured snippet for different articles. That is what we're going to be working with today. Then you have one for breadcrumbs that I use a lot on the Unicorn Factory, and it actually helps out a lot. So this is definitely an easy one to implement. And then there are also things like events and FAQs. So you'll get a good idea of what exactly is available to you. And then whenever you've decided that you want to implement one of those onto your site, you can just go through that process. So the first one that I'm going to set up is one that I think is a quite valuable one to set up, which is the local business featured snippet. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on get started, and it will take you to a page where it will show you how it all works. But if you scroll right to the bottom, you'll actually see an example of a script that you'll be able to use on your site. Now, Google really dives deep into what exactly you can specify inside of your structured data. So you can have things like business hours, you can include things like multiple departments, and a whole bunch of other things. So I just recommend diving in, checking out what's available, and then using whatever it is that you want to use. Another way to find out what kind of information is available is to use a website called schema.org, which will give you all of the properties that you can use inside of your structured data for specific listing types. So if you jump in there, you'll be able to see schemas for things like people, reviews, products, offers, restaurants, all those types of things. So whatever business you're working on, you'll definitely be able to find something that is very appropriate in terms of setting up the structured data for your business. Now, one quick thing that I want to say about using structured data is that there's actually multiple ways of doing this. So first of all, you have JSON, which is the most common way of using it. It's the way that I use it. And basically what you do is you just simply jump to the code that Google provides you, which is this stuff here, and just copy and paste that onto your site, and then make whatever adjustments you need to make in order to display the correct information. And then another way that you can do it is using microdata. And basically what that means is that you can add custom attributes to different elements elements on your page, and that will then allow the Google bots to read what certain things are about. But I have found that setting it up like this is a little bit more tedious, so if you don't have that as a particular preference, then I just recommend going with the JSON. So we're going to kick things off by simply jumping over to this section here and copying pasting over the script section by just going right here and then hopping into our page that we want to post the JSON on, and then just simply dropping it in below the body tag. So what you can see now is that you've basically got all the information that Google provided to you, and now what you want to do is you want to start making adjustments to fit your business. So you can do things like change the name of your business from Dake Stavehouse to Neusland, because that's the name of the template. And then you can start making adjustments to things like your postal address and all those types of things. So just to be clear, this section here is what we're working on right now. So any information that you want to display inside of your organizational box, you can just add to your JSON. And again, if you have something that is missing in this particular page in here, then what you can do is you can either look up additional information with on the actual Google search central page, or you can use schema.org to dive even deeper. They'll give you a whole bunch of additional fields that you can use, so you can potentially make it look a lot more like this. Now, one thing that you can do if you want to remove certain sections is just jumping in there and removing them. Now, one important thing to know about working with JSON is that if a certain element is the final information or data that you've added, then you need to make sure that you remove the last comma, otherwise it won't read the JSON properly. And then if you want to be super sure, then use the rich results test page, where you can just simply copy and paste in the code that you've been using, and then what will happen is Google will tell you whether or not the bot is reading it correctly, and if it isn't, as it isn't here, it will tell you what exactly the issue is, and then you can go through the process of fixing up your JSON. Now, if you're not super familiar with JSON, which is completely cool, I'm not really either, then you can use this website called JSON Lint, where you can just basically paste in your code and then just go validate JSON, and it will then tell you whether or not the JSON that you're using is valid, and if it is, it will tell you down below. But if it isn't, it will just simply come up with an error message, and then you can just play around with it until you kind of figure out whether or not it works. Oftentimes, the most common reason why JSON doesn't work is because you're missing a closing bracket somewhere. So it's just a matter of having a play around with it and making sure that whenever you open a particular bracket, you also close it, and making sure that if you are using these speech marks, that you also close them off as well. Either way, back to the site. So just go through the process of updating all of it, remove the information that you don't want, make sure to update your business type, and as soon as that is done, you have done that part of your job, and you can move on to the next thing. So the next example that we're going to go over is when we paste this structured data onto a template page. So a very common example of this is posting it onto article pages. And again, what we want to start off with is just by copying and pasting over the script that Google provides us, and then pasting it onto our blog post template page. So obviously one thing that we want to do now is we don't want to change the headlines and all of the other fields by just typing in what the name of the fields are, because obviously those are static values, and if we change different blog posts, it will always use whatever static values sit in there. So what we can do is we can actually use the Webflow CMS to dynamically populate things like the headline, and the way that we're going to do that is just by clicking on that purple add field in the top right corner and then clicking on the corresponding field that we want to use in that section. So again, I won't be using the image fields, but again, if you are using a thumbnail, then this is where you would use it. If we want to use the date published field, then what we're going to do is we're going to remove the current static version that's in there now, and then we're going to add the published on field right in there. Again, date modified, if you want to do that as well, there is a field for that inside of Webflow. So we just go click on the updated on field, and then you can even use values that are related to cross-reference fields. So if I want to use the author, then I can just use the author name. And if you wanted to use, for example, a URL. Now the URL isn't available in here, but the way that I do it is I actually just type in the name of your author page, which in this case is say noiseland.com/author/. And now what you can do is you can actually add the slug of that particular page, and that will then dynamically populate with the slug for this author and therefore generate a dynamic URL. And then again, you just have to go through this process of populating the correct information with the dynamic fields, and then Google will be able to index the right information about this page regardless of what page you are on at any given time. And just like that, you have learned a pretty advanced SEO tactic, which is implementing structured data onto your website. Now, I just want to be super clear that even though you have now implemented structured data onto your site, it doesn't guarantee that Google will create a featured snippet for you. It definitely helps or makes it easier for Google to now understand what the different type of content is that you might have on a page. But at the end of the day, Google might just pick it up automatically and therefore create a featured snippet for you. But doing it just doesn't hurt at all, and it might actually just increase the chances of you getting a featured snippet. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around for the entire video, and I'll see you back here for the next one.